Family and fellow soldiers, I'm the Professor, and this is the Moment of Truth. And now the Friday Crime Report. Summerlin, Nevada, April 8th, 2025. This morning's briefing is going to be truly disturbing because it involves the kind of depravity typical of the dominant society. In this case, it is yet another example of a child being sexually assaulted, this time by his fellow classmates. I won't go into deep details about this offense, but there will be mention made as to the nature of what was done to the victim so you can understand specifically what the white authorities are once again choosing to overlook, ignore, and to minimize. Alexander Dawson Middle School in Summerlin, Nevada is a private school whose tuition for kindergarten through 8th grade is $32,500. So this is the cream of the suburban crop, the so-called most educated and cultured people in the society. Well, this case provides us a way to see exactly what kind of family values are being taught by these well-to-do suburbanites. On April 3rd of last year, a number of the children from Alexander Dawson were on a paid field trip to Costa Rica. I don't know what's more extraordinary, that these suburban scum went to a school that allowed them to take trips to Costa Rica, or that it was a paid trip. Well, at least we know what their tuition money's been used for. During the trip, the students took part in a number of excursions, but it was when they got back to their hotel rooms that the crimes began occurring. Keep in mind, these are middle schoolers here, not even high school students. Reports are that the boys on this trip had been mercilessly bullying one of their male classmates, which ended up with them stripping him naked and throwing his clothes on the balcony at the hotel. Then, 2 days later, the boys ganged up on him, pinned him down, and sexually assaulted him with a flute, threatening to castrate him if he resisted. The ringleader for this demonic activity was then 14-year-old Vaughn Griffith. He was the private school's class president. So, not only is he considered to be an elite among just the society of suburbanites he came from, but he was apparently supposed to be some sort of elite at his own middle school. This, by the way, Vaughn character was the one who threatened to castrate the victim if he resisted. During the assault, the other participants could be heard saying, "It's clearly sexual," and another one saying, "assault." Upon returning to the U.S., the victim initially said nothing because, according to the white media, he didn't want the other boys to get in trouble. Well, we all know that's not true. What happened was this child was traumatized by what these animals did to him. Clearly, he was humiliated beyond words. And also, he's probably just knowledgeable enough about the world to know that he shouldn't expect anything to actually be done about it. He eventually, though, told his stepmother what had occurred, and she was the one who reported it to the school's principal. By the way, the school has basically been circling the wagons for their own defense. The police eventually investigated, and that's when they discovered the video of the attack which Vaughn had posted on his Snapchat account. They identified at least 3 other assailants in addition to Vaughn, but at this point only one other suspect has actually been charged, though only as a juvenile, so their identity is unknown. And it's also unknown if the other 2 attackers will be charged at all. A family member of Vaughn's posted $20,000 bail for him on October 10th of last year. The conditions of his bail include high-level electronic monitoring, no internet except for school purposes, staying away from minors other than siblings, staying away from the victim, surrendering his passport, and staying out of trouble. Little late for that one. Last month, a Clark County grand jury indicted Griffith for possession of visual presentation depicting sexual conduct of a child. The judge on the case ordered that he be tried as an adult. His next court date is on June 23rd, with a trial date set for October. Now, why isn't anyone being charged with rape, you wonder? Well, it's because the prosecutors in Clark County are saying that since the crime occurred in Costa Rica, the Costa Rican authorities are the ones who have jurisdiction. The Costa Rican authorities, of course, are saying that they didn't even know that this crime had occurred. Now, in the U.S., there's a legal concept called extraterritoriality. It allows prosecutors to charge and try offenders for crimes that happened outside of the country bringing the charges. It's rare, but it is used, usually for cases involving terrorism or sex offenses and crimes with a U.S. nexus. This incident hits 2 of those 3, but as far as I'm concerned, if the Clark County authorities aren't pursuing the rape charges, it's because they don't want to. They're not trying to prosecute this case, they're trying to contain its scope and minimize it. They're protecting these juvenile rapists instead of protecting the public. Now, if this kind of thing sounds familiar, it should. This is just like Ethan Couch, the so-called affluenza teen who killed 4 people with his pickup truck. Then he was given a slap on the wrist as long as he didn't leave the country, which of course he immediately did. And once he was recaptured and brought back, he got off again, this time only serving a couple of years in prison before they let him go all over again. This case out of Nevada and the way the authorities have chosen to handle it most closely resembles Brock Turner, the infamous California rapist, whose white privilege made it where the judge declared in open court that he wasn't going to hand down a sentence that would ruin his life. No mention made to his victim, so the judge gave this guilty-as-hell rapist just 6 months in jail, not prison, jail, and then 3 years probation. The judge, of course, was Aaron Persky, and Californians rallied to mount a recall election that saw him thrown off the bench. That case is very relevant to this one because at the time you had the left corner of the white media, not the white right, but the white left, pushing asinine hysteria saying that if Judge Persky was recalled because he didn't give Brock Turner the sentence he deserved, well, that would lead judges nationwide to be terrified of losing their jobs too, so they would just begin giving everyone the harshest sentences regardless, and that this would most affect black defendants. First of all, the outrage about the sentence former Judge Persky gave to Brock Turner wasn't because the sentence wasn't harsh enough. The problem was that the judge basically didn't punish him at all. And secondly, black people had absolutely nothing to do with the Brock Turner case, so why was the white media so eager to try to drag us into that conversation? And to use the racially biased injustice system as a justification to excuse not punishing the very white offenders who the law ignores to begin with? And thirdly, after Persky was recalled and thrown off the bench, has anyone seen judges handing down a slew of unusually harsh sentences against white offenders? Me neither. What that phony hysteria was about was the white media running interference for the racial privileges and perks that act as the tangible benefits for those classified as white. And they would tell any lie to do so. Oh, and on a side note, when the white media was reporting on Brock Turner, the rapist, they made sure to mention that he was a Stanford swimmer. They put that in all the headlines. They wanted to make sure that before you even knew what he was being charged with, they make sure to mention, this guy is a Stanford swimmer, by the way. Yeah, go ahead and talk about his athletic activities. Go ahead and talk about his golf championships, anything except for the crime. That's what they do if the person they're reporting on isn't black. They always make sure, let's find some sort of sports angle. Let's go ahead and say that this guy's accomplished in some kind of way. The exact same narrative over and over again. This is not an accident. No matter what the white media may try to tell you, this isn't about him having money. People are talking about Jeffrey Epstein and saying that his situation and the people being protected by the DOJ is all about being rich and powerful. Really? Then why was Bill Cosby railroaded into prison and nobody tried to stick up for him in the white media? Why was R. Kelly so easily put in prison? And why are random suburban trash like Brock Turner and Drew Clinton and many others like these punks out of Nevada not? Is Brock Turner on the level of Jeffrey Epstein? And yet he got more protection from the authorities than Epstein did, believe it or not. These things don't keep happening because of money, family. The thing that's actually protecting these rapists is race. When you read the white media's reports about this Griffith character, they mention that he's a golf champion before they even mention that he's been charged with having a video of him and his friends sodomizing a classmate. The white media wants to always make sure that so long as they're talking about a non-black offender, they make certain to humanize that guy. They mention, such and such over here who killed 60 people, he's got a job. This guy over here who sodomized a child, he's got some sort of accomplishments. He was very good at pee-wee golf. Meanwhile, if it's a black person who's being accused of anything, it doesn't matter if they got the Congressional Medal of Honor, if they're a miracle worker, if they save orphans on the weekdays and save the whales on the weekends, you won't hear about any of that. Instead, it'll be any sort of dirt that they can find under that person's fingernails, anything that they can find to justify, this guy clearly should go to prison. This is color-coded media coverage, and this is how the white media trains the public mind. This is how they condition the public to automatically react one way to a white person who commits a crime, and then exactly the opposite to a black citizen accused of something. This is what the white media's carefully crafted narratives are meant to do. This story out of Las Vegas is disturbing, but that's exactly the reason why it ought to be wall-to-wall, nationwide. We should be seeing the white right ranting and raving about how the laws need to be changed to make sure that juveniles who commit certain offenses get charged as adults. Strengthening America's extraterritoriality laws. Shouldn't we be hearing that? But of course, they know that when they choose to demand harsher laws, they must directly connect it to a particular case, because that's what tells the public who the harsher laws are actually meant to apply to. And that's why we never hear them demanding harsher laws unless there's a case involving a black defendant who they can point to. Normally, when talking about this kind of savagery and depravity, we're talking about some rural hellhole out in the sticks with a tiny population but gargantuan degeneracy. But when it comes to the historical racial privilege that gives rise to this kind of behavior, that's not confined to a small population, nor is it just in the suburbs. Though what it is confined to is the white media's back page. This story needs to be wall to wall. Every school needs to be aware of this and talking about it, and there need to be further investigations and questions asked about other so-called field trips where this kind of thing has been allowed to occur. But as usual, the white media's job is to promote a racial narrative, and as a result, they don't care what happens, not even to children who are classified as white. Their priority is to save face, not to save lives. This case has been reduced to a local Las Vegas story. Unlike with Brock Turner and Drew Clinton, they were able to actually contain this one. But all of these incidents are treated the same for the same reason. They'll make sure to bury what happens next. There won't be any continuing coverage of this case, though they will make sure to remind everyone that this creep was a golf champion whenever they talk about him. And the very public from the dominant society who tries to pretend as if they're so outraged about this, not one of them is going to be on a crusade to strengthen the laws to make sure that this doesn't happen again. After all, everybody knows the laws were never written to actually punish the Brock Turners, the Jeffrey Epsteins, or the Vaughn Griffiths of this world. And that's the reason why these crimes in particular keep happening over and over again. It doesn't matter if it's someplace in California, or a secluded pedophile island in the Caribbean, or a supposedly safe hotel for kids in Costa Rica. It's always the same result. Well, at least now, with this little reprobate, we can say that he's graduated from the classroom to the courtroom. And that's this week's Friday Crime Report. Keep your eyes open and stay on alert, because there's a lot worse criminals out there than the ones the white corporate media chooses to show you. Good day, and be one. I'd like to take a moment to mention some of our contributors: Mark Anderson, Jesse Good, Kamari Wright, Shannon Moore, and Abram Pruitt. Salute to them, and thank you to everyone for listening, liking, and sharing this message. Black empowerment only exists because of you.